The Expanded University, imaginative and boundless.
Howdy, spacers! I know the Lord of the Core. I storage in the origin. I know the record like a tech nerd. I've got the hot takes for the bot fakes, and most importantly, I am never a victim. Impromptu stream here. Just thought it would be fun to start, because it wouldn't happen in one stream. I want to start going over the changes side by side of the special editions of Star Wars. So if you're going to watch and you're going to wind it back, make sure you share the link out there on all platforms. But this will have eminent replayability, so anyone can watch this tomorrow, next week, or even a year from now. Should be pretty fun, but it's better when it's interactive. So make sure you share the link out there for this impromptu stream. One thing to keep in mind, and I think I made a video on this about, gosh, it might have been 3 years ago at this point. The 1997 special editions weren't truly the first special editions, because right out of the gate in 1977, there were 3 different audio mixes, different voice actors, especially like Aunt Beru, totally different voice actor, and then some of the Imperial officers, stuff like that. And then Lucas actually did make a couple of changes, because he had to get it out the door to the theaters, kept on working on it, and then sent follow-up film to some of the theaters. So there were changes well before 1997. And I remember watching on television versus HBO back in the 80s, and there were different audio mixes at that point as well. So 1997, really, it was just marketed at that time as being, hey, this is a special edition. This is me making the movie that I really want to make, right? But it wasn't the first time he made changes, for sure. And plus, people don't know this, but the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, they used that show and the special editions to get ready for the prequel trilogy in terms of CGI and all the new technology that Lucasfilm had developed in the late 80s and early 90s. So a lot of the background stuff in Young Indiana Jones is CGI. And it was just like a trial run, right? To see if they could really do this or not. And then the next phase, okay, we got to do Star Wars. What a great idea. Let's do a 20th anniversary re-release, and I'll get to make the movies I really wanted to make and all that kind of stuff. So that's really what the special editions were about in 1997. Plus, they made a ton of money, not just at the box office, but also in all the marketing. Because you had Yum brands, you had Taco Bell, KFC, Pizza Hut doing all that promotional stuff. Here's a cup with like a character topper on it. I think I have a couple of those right over here, maybe in the attic in a tub somewhere. But it was a huge thing. And then it got people talking again and excited about Star Wars. A few years before that, Kenner, now owned by Hasbro, started releasing action figures again. So that's really what it was about. Let's get people excited about Star Wars. Let's make some money, because he has to fund this stuff, right? And then let's see if we can really do this using this newly available technology, quite frankly, that they invented. So that's what they were about. But we're going to look at the actual changes. Not the 1997 changes, but the latest ones, which were 2011. I think those are the latest ones. Little tweaks here and there were made, and then some stuff they put in were taken out. It was a work in progress. And from the very beginning, Lucas said, hey, art is never finished. It's just abandoned or something like that. That's always been his philosophy. And if you go back to some of the interviews he gave as early as the 70s, he always said he didn't really get to make the movie he wanted, even though we think it's awesome, right? So he always wanted to do this, and I'm not saying it justifies a lot of the changes. It just shouldn't have been a surprise to some of the people that don't like it. Mike Gossius is in the house. I watched the original version on VHS and the new edition many times. Yeah, I have, of the originals, the very first VHS releases, I only have Return of the Jedi. It's over there somewhere, and it is actually a video store copy because those were bulkier. They were meant to last longer. So I have one of those. Back over here, I've got the letterbox edition is what they called it. I have the THX release, which was like the last time, I believe that was the THX release. You could get it. Trying to think of what else. I think I have just the regular trilogy that came out once they all came out individually in the late 80s. I have the full screen and widescreen special edition, and then on DVD, I have the 2006 release that has the unaltered versions on a special bonus disc. And it pissed a lot of people off because they didn't clean them up and stuff, but I'm just happy to have them in any kind of disc format. So one of these days I'll have to like line all that stuff up, take a photo, make a video on it, something like that. I'll have to dig some of it out because I think some of it is in tubs in here. It needs to get out here and get displayed. Was Boba Fett and the Jabba scene, that was added in later. They didn't even know what Boba Fett looked like in 1976. I'm not even sure he had conceived of the character. He probably knew that there would be a bounty hunter or bounty hunters after Han Solo, but didn't know what he looked like. A lot of the bounty hunters they used, and even the Jabba design in the Marvel comic, were just kind of random aliens and stuff like that. And Jabba was actually revealed in the Marvel comic, and they kind of retconned that character into Mosip Benid, who was Jabba's accountant. So he was the one in the books going after Han, saying, hey, pay your debt and stuff. So it was kind of retconned into not being actually Jabba, which obviously was revealed to be a Hutt species in 1983 in Return of the Jedi. Dvslord in the house, member of the channel, haven't seen you in a while. Recognizing Darth Pyrus. We got Biggles Metz, top tier member of the channel in the house. And if you guys want to support the channel, make sure you join it at any level. So that's kind of the background of the special editions. Let me move this over here. Let's maximize this. Obviously, sound off. We're going to do some frequent pausing here. Let's back this up. And whoever put this together, I'll get you the channel name later. But I'm going to have to find, the different movies, ESB and ROTJ at some point. All right, here we go. So obviously the opening credits, 1977, it didn't have episode 4 or the title because the studio didn't want Lucas to confuse the audience. It's not that he didn't have the idea to have an episode at that point, because again, this stuff, guys, is based on Flash Gordon. George tried to get the rights to Flash Gordon. He made a trip. On the way, I think he was on his way to France, or at least he was on his way across the pond to do something. And I want to say the owners of the rights to Flash Gordon were somewhere up in New England. And he couldn't get the rights to it. So he's like, all right, I'll just kind of... I think he was on his way to Cannes Film Festival in France when he made that stop on the East Coast. Couldn't get the rights. So he said, I'll kind of make my own Flash Gordon, which wound up being Star Wars that we know and love today. So they had titles like this. They had the scrolls, right? And it would have like chapter whatever. So he wanted to have the episode 4 or whatever episode he was calling it at the time. But the studio didn't want it because they thought it would confuse fans. So you had the Star Wars title, and that looked a little bit different. Let me back it up here. The timing was off a little bit there. So the color is a little bit more vibrant in the newer version. So we can forward through all the titles there because the wording didn't change or anything. Actually, I believe the wording did change. Let me back this up. I'm going to correct myself. Where is it at? There it is. Well, interestingly, this has rebel as a proper noun. I thought that it was a lowercase r in the original one. Maybe, I guess I'm wrong. Maybe it's the A New Hope version on VHS that had the lowercase r. I don't know, but I thought it was a lowercase r, not like a proper noun. But I stand corrected. We'll have to look into that. So you get past the titles. And then this is one of the first changes. On the left there, you see R2-D2 down in the canyon. And on the right, 2011, you've got like a sunset skyline on Tatooine. This isn't really offensive. I think it looks beautiful on the right, but I don't think the left looks bad at all. And George used to like to do a lot of stuff like this. Believe it or not, there's a special edition of American Graffiti, where at the end with the sunset, he digitally modified that because I guess he wasn't happy with the way that it looked in the beginning. But either way, this would have been fine. I think for them to put the work into this, there was definitely something behind it. Maybe the plan was to see if they could do this with Coruscant later. In fact, I posted a beautiful picture on X yesterday morning saying good morning to everyone, and it was of Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan out on the balcony on Coruscant with all the sky lanes, and you could see the skyline and stuff like that. So I don't know if they were practicing with this scene, but to me it's like, of all the things you could have changed, why did you spend time on this? That's just kind of my question. Darth Paz is in the house. Mike says, my mom's memory of watching A New Hope as a kid here in Cincinnati is seeing it at a drive-in and then getting La Rosa's pizza burned 3 times. What do they burn pizza there? Is that what you're saying? I've been to Cincinnati. I don't know if I shared that before. I went about 6 years ago, and I made a pilgrimage to the Kroger building. I took a selfie with it before. This is like at night after I'd had dinner at P.F. Chang's. And here come like all the panhandlers. So I got back in my rental and took off. But the Kroger building, the top floor, used to be the Kenner offices that made all the legendary Star Wars toys, the vintage Star Wars toys. I'll have to dredge up that picture sometime. Only seen the original version. Really? That's interesting because you're a younger individual. Didn't like TPM change of Yoda. Well, and there's a few iterations of that, and at some point we'll get to that movie. Because we're going to do them all whenever time allows on these impromptu streams, or maybe even planned streams, and get a couple of panelists on here too. But this change right here, it's like whatever, like it wasn't needed necessarily, but I'm not really offended by it. I like either way. And then there's the pan there too that you see on the right. This one right here, I think I remember reading that they thought the miniature was too recognizable on the left. But honestly, guys, look at this one. I think the one on the right looks too clean. I think it looks too crisp. It almost looks plasticky to me. Whereas the one on the left, it looks real, like you're standing there in the desert, and then here comes this giant box on tracks coming over the hill. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. The one on the right just looks too cartoony to me. And I kind of like how the shot is further away. It's like we're gonna be able to see what the sandcrawler looks like later, so not really needed to have a close-up shot like this, in my mind. And if you guys don't know, like, the lore behind the Jawa sandcrawlers is that mining corporations went to Tatooine decades, hundreds of years, whatever it was, before the movie, and it was kind of a bust. And it's funny because in the lore, the ore that they were mining wound up being magnetic, so it was useless because you don't want to have like magnetic metal when you construct stuff for various reasons. So they kind of abandoned everything and then left all these sand crawlers and other mining equipment there, and then Jawas, being the scavengers they are, learned how to use the technology, and then they just kind of took them over. So I'm sure that these things require a lot of maintenance because they're so old, and I'm sure there's not spare parts and stuff like that for them. Admiral Screed's in the house. I don't mind it either, but yeah, love Puppet Yoda. Yeah, trust me guys, we're going to get to that one, and we'll show you all the different versions that they did of Yoda, because there was more than just two. It's the only original version I have seen. It was your uncle's. Got it. Alright, let's keep going here. That was a pretty short shot in the movie. So the timing's off a bit there. Now this right here, like, I see what they're trying to do with the rocks. Like, you know, how did R2 think he was hiding and stuff? Let's add another rock on the left. Well, number one, he's still visible if you're from the vantage point of the camera. Number two, he might not have had anywhere else to hide, right? There might not have been a better place to hide, and that, quite frankly, on the right, isn't great either. So why not just leave it the same? This one to me didn't make any sense. Like, if you're going to do that, then cover everything up but like his photoreceptor, and then, you know, don't really explain how he got out of there. Maybe he kind of like shimmied out sideways or something when the camera was on Obi-Wan. I don't know. I just thought this was stupid. But the one on the left, it's like, hey, oh no, action's going down, I have to hide, and that's the best place he could find. That's how I always thought of it. So for me, this was useless. Dude, that remote control one is worth some money. You need to be posting pictures of this stuff. Dvslord. Apparently, Star Wars Outlaws girl is going to see. Is there a place to see it? Jawas annoyed me. Sand people are awesome. Yeah, they're supposed to be annoying, and for those who don't know, they stink too. It's not really talked about in the movies, but they smell really bad. Nice. Okay, so added CGI rocks. Are they talking about in the background here? Like, what are they? I guess they mean the background changed a little bit. Like, okay. Also, pretty worthless change in my opinion. Like, he can see him, so it's like R2, you can still be seen. Now, say what you will about this one, but I think the one on the right, not so much the architecture of the house to be more in line with what's in Mos Eisley with the dome on top, but I think it's more of a positioning standpoint, because on top of that rise, I think it would be easier for Obi-Wan to defend his home versus the one on the left, which appears to just be, you know, out in the open desert. Granted, it's not a wide shot, and for all we know, it could be on top of like a hill or a mountain or something. But I think the one on the right makes it clear that, hey, he's in a more defensible position than was shown in the original film. But still, I like the architecture on the left. It's more of like something you'd see in a Clint Eastwood Western when he's like, in a Mexico border town or something, like an Adobe style structure. But I don't hate this shot. Plus you get the water evaporator thrown in there like, hey, Jedi Master's got a drink, right? So this one really doesn't bother me. Whoa, they flashed through a bunch here. Let me pause. Dadgum, dude. I'm gonna have to slow this son of a bitch down. Hang on. These next few shots just boom, boom, boom. I don't see the difference here. I don't see what they're looking at. Looks like they just added a little bit more color and cleared it up here. Made things more crisp. I didn't hate this shot either because they really left the shot itself alone. They made it look more crisp. The city didn't look like just a bunch of like streets and stuff and lines. You could actually see some structures. So I didn't hate this shot either. Gabriel Knight's in the house. Mike says, I don't know why he didn't have his house in the show. Oh, you're talking about the Disney show. Yeah, I have no idea because I didn't watch that crap. I vaguely remember he was living in a cave or something like that. Definitely not how it went down in real lore. Admiral Screed says, I grew up watching the special editions. I have the Fox VHS tapes I got from my uncle. It was jarring to see Star Wars, less Star Wars than I was used to. There was nothing wrong with the Fox VHS tapes. Yeah, I mean, it is pretty jarring, and anytime I watch it, I watch my 2006 unaltered DVDs. It's just what I'm used to, but it doesn't really offend me to watch the special editions. But if I have a choice and I do, then I don't. But anyway, Mos Eisley, I think it looks a lot better on the right here, with all that detail of the buildings. And again, not just what appears to be almost like you're flying in an airplane over a city and you can see all the lines of the roads and streets. Ben Kenobi's call. Oh, they're talking about the change in the sound over the crate dragon call you used to scare the Tusken Raiders away. I thought this was horrible because for years it was legendary. I used to make that sound, when I was a kid and stuff like that. For them to change it and have this weird echoey effect, like why? What was the whole point? Here's a bit of cool lore. So in Heir to the Empire, when Mara and Luke are on Merkur, and they're kind of on the run in the forest, Luke uses the crate dragon call that Obi-Wan had apparently taught him to scare away some of the Vornskers, at least for a few seconds. It didn't work for very long, but it's cool that Timothy Zahn called back to that. in 1990, 1991 in that book. Yeah, the sound is timeless, Dvslord. So why did they change it? Now this right here, the dewbacks, this is what I remember being pushed in Star Wars Insider. Like, hey, look, these are some of the first shots that we have. They did it really smart here. So for those who don't know, when I say they did it smart, I'm talking about 1976, 77 when they filmed all this stuff. That was actually a built-out puppet of the dewback. And there are some production shots, close-ups of the dewback, and it looks pretty damn good. It looks like a giant lizard, has the eyes and everything, but it couldn't move, right? It's also outside of the Mos Eisley Cantina, not moving. So I think that's why they were smart about it, and they said, we'll do this wide shot, right? Have a trooper sitting on top of it with his lance, and in fact, up on top of one of my shelves up here, I have the, whatever it is, like the 1997 toy, and he even has that lance that he's holding up. But they did it smartly, like, hey, this rubber puppet looks good, but if we do a close-up of it, it's literally going to look like a guy sitting on an immobile lizard puppet. So they were smart about it. The silhouette, to me, looks pretty good. Then they kind of pan left here. Look, sir, droids. Then here's the 2011 version. So right behind you here, you've got, let me pause it, you've got the dewback moving. That looks pretty dang good for the CGI of the time. Then you have the Imperial dropship in the back, obviously from the same manufacturer as the Imperial shuttle. I believe it's Kuat Drive Yards or Cygnus Spaceworks as kind of like a licensed out manufacturer. So that doesn't look half bad. Looks way better than what we'll look at later, and I think you know what I'm talking about. The only thing is in this shot, like, are they, I hope they're just now getting there. Obviously they are, because the dropship is taken back off, but they're all together. But I guess it makes sense because they're just now getting there. But hopefully they spread out and they start actually looking, right, for whatever they're looking for. Now, one thing I didn't like is they made the call in the background from a dewback, and it sounded just like the sound Obi-Wan made. So I don't know if that's why they changed it. Like right here, you'll see its mouth open. Right there. So I don't know if that's why they changed the sound that Obi-Wan made, because they wanted to reserve that sound for the dewback. But it's like, guys, for years we recognized that that was a crate dragon call, not a dewback call. And then we got Luxor droids again. Love that dropship. Rogue Squadron was one of the first games you ever played. You mean for N64? My VHS version just had the Luxor droids part. I don't remember the dewback puppet. Yeah. Because there was only, if I'm not, I think I'm correct in this, but there was only one release, timeline-wise, of the special editions on VHS. You had a silver pack that was the widescreen and a gold pack that was the full screen. I don't think there were subsequent releases of the special editions. I could be wrong. Let's see. So there's the dewback I mentioned earlier. Let's see if he's moving in 1977. Not really. Get a closer shot here. See, he's moving a lot in 2011. Yeah, pretty still there. You know, if he is moving at all, They probably got like a rod or a string or something kind of like gently pulling and moving the head. So people don't know this, but in the scene, or in the shot maybe preceding this, that character right there, the camera pans left after Obi-Wan cuts off the arm of Ponda Baba. And then this guy is like right there in the shot. Then he's outside snitching, right? What's funny about that is Decipher's CCG card game, they made that guy a light side character. Because I don't think they picked up on the fact that he immediately went outside and snitched that, hey, someone with a lightsaber is in there. So, pretty interesting shot. And then you got a do back there, right, in this 2011 shot. Which is fine. Stormtrooper climbing off of it. Then we'll go into the Mos Eisley changes in general here. All right, let's speed this back up to where we were. So it kind of looks like Ben's house. In fact, that structure on the left could be Ben's house, shot from a different angle. Not really a lot going on there. You got another land speeder. Droids, power droids, R2 units, whatever, wheeling around. But here's what they did. Completely changed everything. That building on the left is gone. More moisture evaporators. You got the little critters. I'm trying to think of what those are called. I don't think they're... I can't think of what those are called. They were kind of invented for the special editions. And then the land speeder is clearly floating here. And then in the background, you've got a Gallifrey Yards cargo ship. I think that's a GR-70. The ones that the Rebels used were GR-90s, so they're a little bit bigger. But in my mind here, this was a little bit of showing off. But it's fine because it made the spaceport look busy. And it's actually a spaceport. You see ships in the air. Is that the Outrider right there? On the left, I think it is. I don't know if it's the Outrider, if it's supposed to be, or if it's just a YT-2400. I can't remember, to be honest. So you got this little narrow street here, a lot more activity, stormtroopers. The Ronto. So this is what I'll mention, guys. Right here I got Shadows of the Empire, the original novel. See that green price tag from Costco when I bought it in California when it first came out. So Shadows of the Empire as a multimedia project was being developed around the same time that the special edition was. So they're like, hey, let's find some synergies here, right? So the Ronto was actually first mentioned anywhere in either Star Wars Insider or in the Shadows of the Empire making of books. I think it's like Secrets of Shadows of the Empire. That swoop that you see the guy on right there. The design of that was used for Shadows of the Empire. So they were conferring with each other when they made Shadows of the Empire multimedia project, the game for N64 for PC, the novel, the comic, and then the special edition, A New Hope. They were working together on that because don't forget, guys, way back in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, Star Wars was one continuity, and they had every intention of making things consistent. So it's pretty cool that the Ronto was revealed in Shadows of the Empire literature well before the special edition came out in, what was it, January 1997. Well, it's pretty funny you should mention that, Admiral Screed, because I've got right here the Hutt Gambit. I didn't pull Rebel Dawn out, but they also integrated, and this came out in 97, they also integrated a lot of the stuff about Jabba and the Hutts into the Hutt Gambit and Rebel Dawn as well. So as soon as they saw this stuff coming out, they're like, hey, let's find ways to tie that into the books, right? To make things consistent. Like when Jabba, I'm sure we'll see that scene in a few minutes here, when he undulates, is the term that they use, like he is in Docking Bay 94, they move around like that in the Hutt Gambit. Yeah, those books were amazing. I love both Han Solo trilogies, the Brian Daley and the A.C. Crispin ones. You know when they say hashtag make Solo 2 happen? I say hashtag Solo 2 did happen. Krath, Holy Crusaders in the house. It's the third book in the Han Solo trilogy. At the very end, Han sees, okay, well, there you go. I need to reread those. I reread Heir to the Empire trilogy about 5 years ago. I reread the X-Wing books about... It was further back than I think. It was before COVID. But I need to reread both Han Solo trilogies because, you know, the movie characters, he's my favorite character for sure. You think they're called Nunas? Yeah, I think you're right. They're definitely not Womp Rats, because Womp Rats are completely different creatures. That's awesome. Yeah, that's the original hardcover there. I've had it for almost 30 years. So they added that shot of the Ronto and the Jawa flying off. Side by side, you see the Ronto in the background. Walking in front of the camera, that looks pretty good. Nothing wrong with that. I like this scene, even in the original here, because it feels like documentary style. I just think it's cool. Got the Ronto in the background still. And then this here, this image was also in the games as well, of the crashed starship. The whatever Voyager. Can't think of the name of the ship. It's like, guys, you're overusing the Ronto a little bit here. I would have thrown some other stuff in. It's like almost every shot, let's throw the Ronto in there. And then, you know, back up a little bit. Even more. George wasn't happy with the way the land speeder was floating. I, as a kid, never had a problem with it. It doesn't look horrible. At least in this shot. I mean, it doesn't look bad at all. But I guess it looks better on the right. There's that Ronto again. A Ronto for every shot, guys. Okay, then we got the cantina, and, you know, this has been known for decades, because I remember From Star Wars to Jedi, which Mark Hamill narrates, they kicked this off right here, and it says, remember the cantina scene from Star Wars? Everyone loved it, except George. He didn't think it was good enough because I think it was Stuart Freeborn got sick, had to stop working on the masks, so his people had to start finishing them. Then they wound up using masks from other films, maybe slightly modified. This is obviously a Wolfman mask on the left, which in lore is a Defil that has lost its ability to absorb light, so he's visible. They replaced him with Can't think of the name of the character, but the name of the species is a Sarkian, I think. And here's what's cheap about this. Remember the way this character looks for a second, okay? Just remember. Let's keep going. Here's another one. You got Lak Sivrak, the Shistavanen Wolfman, member of the Rebel Alliance. Replaced by the Pasithip. That's the name of that species on the right in 2011 screen that you see there. And what that is, look at the back of the head. That's the other creature with the mask flipped around. That's how cheap they were. It's like, you guys have a chance to do this right, and you're going to save, what, $5,000-$10,000? Maybe more because you have to pay someone to do it and all that stuff. But if you're going to do it, then go ahead and make a completely different mask. If you're going to do it. But I think it was fine. But, you know, Lak Sivrak was obviously a Wolfman mask from like one of the 70s horror films or something like that. Rezakai's in the house. Rick Baker's crew did the pickups. Yeah, I think you're right. I gotta go back and rewatch all those early making of documentaries. My favorite Shistavanen is Volvif Mon. So glad Filoni didn't ruin him. I don't know that character. Only gripe with Mos Eisley is the copy and paste stormtroopers on each side of the narrow street. I'll have to go back and see if I notice that. Yeah, there it is. The expanded University custom emojis. If you want to be able to use those custom emojis and join the channel. But yeah, I thought using the same mask but upside down was cheap. A little bit darker on the right, and I think they changed the sound a little bit here in this shot. Now here's the big one, guys. Here's the big one. This is the one that most people, even the most ardent George supporters, are going to balk at, right? Because this was a major change. And I think it lends itself to conversation, at least, about whether or not it was needed, whether or not it should have been done. And George has said, oh, it's, you know, I don't know the exact term he's using off the top of my head, but, oh, it wasn't honorable, you know, for him to shoot Greedo. Well, Greedo had a gun pointed right at him. Han didn't have the 200,000 plus credits. He probably didn't know whether or not he'd be able to talk his way out of it. Or if you go back to some of the material, he probably thought that Greedo was going to go ahead and kill him, right? So he had to defend himself. And I have an idea on that if George had to do it, and I'll tell you what it is in a minute here. But let's look at the scene. Looks like they're going to show the full screen and not a side-by-side here. So he does it. So this is the first one, 97. Looked horrible. Here's the 2004, where he totally missed. It says now 10 frames have been cut, making the altercation go by as fast as the original version. Let's back that up a little bit here. So it's almost like they shot at the same time or something like that. But again, I know where George was going with this, and some people will say, oh, and just the way he tosses the money. When I was a kid, that was like the coolest thing ever, right? Then look at homeboy right here, the human. He's like, oh, shit, I better not fuck with that motherfucker. And then you got the Sauron species guys. They're kind of over there hanging out. But that was just so cool how he tossed the money and stuff. Now, I get where George is going, and I get people oppose what George is saying by it's the evolution of the character. So here's the thing. If he wanted to do that, here's what I would have done. And you couldn't have done it in a special edition. It would have had to have been done when the film was made, because apparently he didn't have a problem with it at the time. In Return of the Jedi, when they're defending the bunker, I would have had it to where Han has like an open shot on a stormtrooper that's looking in another direction. And he takes aim and he thinks about it like I'm shooting a man in the back. And then he yells, "Hey," or something like that. The stormtrooper turns to him and then he shoots him. And then Han kind of makes like a, you know, like a face or something like whatever. You know what I mean? I would have done something like that. And then you could have seen, okay, he's going to blast someone in A New Hope. But in Return of the Jedi, he's hesitating to shoot a stormtrooper in the back. I still think it would have been stupid. But if you had to do it, I would have done something like that. Not go back to the original and then change it. Because none of that makes sense. The fact that Greedo missed, the fact that Han dodged it, the fact that they shot at the same time, like, you just can't make that work. Of all the other things, I think that's the most egregious one. And it just wasn't needed. We've got Gabriel Knight, longtime member of the channel at this point, for 1999. You mentioned the Decipher card game earlier. Did you play or collect any of it? I didn't play it, but I have a card box over there that has tons of it. I really wish I would have gotten a couple of the Expanded Universe boxes at the time, because there's some really cool cards in there, and quite frankly, some of the only art or depictions of EU characters out there. A lot of lore originated in the CCG. They tried to be consistent with the West End stuff that had come out up to that point. So yeah, I have a lot of them. My brother, me, and a friend played a lot. There's a website from a group called the Star Wars Players Committee that lets you play. Yeah, I've heard about that, and they make new cards and that kind of stuff. I've seen that out there, Gabriel. Sometime I'll have to, like, I used to post pictures of them. I'll have to get back to doing that, because they have a lot of, like, still shots and stuff, and a lot of the cards are hilarious, like an effect card or whatever. A lot of the character cards are hilarious. Like, one example is Yak Face. The guy that looks like a camel. He's a Yarkoran, right? Yarkori, whatever the name of the species is. And it says something like he was a tobacco farmer, because in the Star Wars universe, tobacco, I think Timothy Zahn revealed this, because Niles Ferrier smoked a what was it called? Carababa tobacco or whatever. Anyway, it said that Yak Face was a tobacco farmer because he kind of looked like the camel cigarette guy. Just little hilarious things like that in that CCG. Love it. It's good stuff. But thanks for the 1999. We got to play something for that. What should we play? I got to delete some old clips and make room for some new ones. That's definitely for sure. You can only fit so many. I think StreamYard has reduced the storage space. How about some Count Dooku and Obi-Wan Kenobi?
Would never have gone along with it if he had learned the truth as I have.
The truth.
The truth.
That's what we do here. We share the truth. Thank you very much, Gabriel. King Chris is in the house, saying howdy with the custom howdy emoji and the USA Crusader custom emoji, if you want to be able to use those, and make sure you join the channel. Wooher is based on that gay Jedi said droids are queer, because that Wooher is based because that gay Jedi said droids are queer. Yeah. We'll ask Tuscan Bob about that. All right, let's keep going here. Here's another thing, and from Star Wars to Jedi, it was really cool because they showed parts of this scene in that VHS. And it was so cool to see it, and to see, what's his name? Devin Mulholland, I think is the name of the human that stood in for Jabba that George was eventually going to mat in a stop motion character over. It was cool to see that, and just because it was new footage, in 1982, 83. I had to have been 83 when that VHS came out after Return of the Jedi, obviously. To see new footage, because we didn't really get to see a lot of footage other than what was in the movies. In 1997, Behind the Magic came out, and then we got to see like the big scene, which they showed at a convention, I believe, several months before that, so only the attendees were able to see it. So this is what he looked like in 97. Didn't look too bad from this angle, but this right here didn't look good at all. Like too skinny and just really hazy. Then redone in 2011. Looks better, but to me it looks like something that was in TCW more than should be in live action. That's just my opinion here. And, something with the colors is off. Like if you compared them to Return of the Jedi. The shape and the design doesn't look so bad in this shot right here. It's just more about he doesn't look like he's part of the environment. Like look at the tail and stuff like that. It doesn't blend very well. And of course they inserted Boba Fett. All the other guys were already there. Like if you go back and look at the original live action scene with the human actor. I always thought this guy right here looked like he was a Grand Wizard in the Ku Klux Klan or something. With that hat and stuff. I don't know, he just looks too fat at the bottom. Tail looks too skinny. The arms look too long. I feel like early on in the model building, they could have corrected a lot of this before they started adding texture and stuff like that, but that's just me. Yeah, that's what makes it hilarious, because he was never meant to be human. Yeah, that's a good point. Looks like Gardola. Yeah, and Rhodians are walking all around Mos Eisley. Like in the original version of Star Wars. It's not something that they added in, and you can see one on the right as well, another Rhodian. So in West End Games, in Galaxy Guide for Alien Races by, believe it or not, Troy Denning, he actually said that a lot of them go into bounty hunting off-world from Rhodia and stuff. And because they're real hunters, like on Rhodia, hunting animals, like guests, I think they're called, with these razor-sharp teeth. Yeah, that's exactly. Might have been the same model. CGI model they used and just textured it differently. But again, right here, I don't know, like parts of the head look like Return of the Jedi on both and other parts don't. Oh, not Devon, it was Declan Mulholland of Scotland. Yeah, I don't like either. Love that shot of Chewie walking in. Watch his face. Yeah, somebody said Jabba wouldn't allow that. Probably not from what we've learned about the character. But I think in 1976, when George made this, I don't think he was going to necessarily be a slug. Some of the sketches that they had, he was like bipedal, so they didn't really plan for him being a slug. I would have just done it, made it to where he walks in front of him. You know what I mean? Surely they could have done that easily with CGI. Even if they had to generate like part of Han's legs. And this is stupid right here. Let me just look at the camera. I didn't like that either. Yeah, here's the one that they had in From Star Wars to Jedi. All right, let me stop sharing this for a minute. Because it says on this video from Luke Skywalker is the name of the YouTube account. And this video has 547,000 views. And it's only like 3 years old. It says all changes made to Star Wars A New Hope. But obviously this isn't all of them. Let's see if he has like a part 2. Yes, he does. All right. I don't know. I've always liked the 1977 shot here. I remember, and don't forget, guys, like, you know, in a couple of years here, I'm going to be 50 years old. So a lot of this stuff that we had as kids, some of you have never even heard of, but they had these movie camera things made of plastic, and you would look in the hole and you would dial them like this, like crank them, and they would show like scenes from movies and stuff. And they had one that showed this. So I remember seeing in one of the ones I had, I wish I still had those, the Falcon taking off like that. But they wanted to make it to where it's not just going in a straight line, whatever. But I never had a problem with the original shot. When they flash forward here to the differences in the Death Star firing. And then the explosion. I don't like the ring, either on Alderaan or on the Death Star later in the film. Spoilers, but whatever they want to do. I think the original explosion was iconic. So I don't have a problem with this at all. Like changing from like it says a green tint here. I always thought it looked white. So I have no problem with this at all. So you got 77, 04, and then 11. Still looks too white to me. Yeah, and here's what they didn't do in 97. They didn't correct that one shot where it's kind of like head on Obi-Wan's lightsaber, and you can see the stick, the rod that's connected to the hilt with like the reflective surfaces on it. Let's see if they show that here. Right there. Now they did correct that in 2011 from what I understand. I don't have the 2011 version. At least I don't think I do. But look up there on top. Head on, you can literally see the rod that he's holding. And what they did was they had reflective surfaces on them that spun, and then they could shine lights on them and then generate the lightsaber effects. So I don't have a problem with them finally fixing this in 2011 at all. Some of the shots where they were trying to finalize Obi-Wan dying were hilarious, like with the flames on the robes and all that stuff. There's some pretty funny ones. And then the way the robe fell, it looked really bad. OG Star Wars is in the house. Last day for powwow. That's cool. Tractor beam had power in English on it in the original. They'll probably get to that because they're just on the lightsaber topic now. Yeah, they were. They were very fragile. Subtle censorship. Okay, let's see what this is about. Oh yeah, I always thought it was cool as a kid to see like the dude's chest flaming and stuff. Let's watch this again here. Why is it doing that? Let's back this up. No, I don't like that. I want the original. That was later on in the film when they were up in the detention center. Lame. This guy too, Death Star Trooper. Yeah, there was a dialogue change here where it was quiet in one version and then C-3PO had some commentary on the location. That's the one that was a surprise to me when I first saw that version in the late 80s. Because like the one I had recorded from television didn't have it. I always liked the one on top. A lot of iconic art with that detention block tunnel. So I'm not a fan of the change there. Yeah, that was stupid, adding a blink. That was another thing they did. They added a lot of blinks to creatures and stuff in all the special editions. So here they changed it from English script to Aurebesh. Totally fine with that. This was actually pretty funny right here. So I didn't have a problem with that. But that scene was funny even in the original. I remember laughing at it as a kid. Like he's trying to be a badass, goes around the corner and it backfires. It was pretty funny. Yeah, some audio changes here. Not a big deal. Yeah, it sounded like a shotgun in that version. I thought that was hilarious. So they changed that and fixed it up in 2011, I believe. So, Close the Blast Door was put in there in the special editions. For a little bit of comedy. Added Biggs Darklighter scene. Again, this was shown at one of the Star Wars conventions in the 90s. And then later on in the Behind the Magic CD-ROM set, which was amazing. One of the first places that they coined the term expanded universe as a proper noun. And that wasn't until 97, guys. I have a whole video on that, on when they actually started calling it the expanded universe. There you got Red Leader. What's his name? Garvin Dryce. Keely Chow's in the house, member for 5 months. What is with these changes? That's what we're looking at. Yeah, so this is an interesting one here. Let's wait till they get some of the shots here. So, as you can see on the top, it's black, right? His blue parts are black. Well, the reason is they used a blue screen in the background for the space shots. So his blue parts wouldn't have been shown up, right? So they had to make them black. So they used CGI to make them blue again for the special edition releases. Don't have a problem with that at all. But I understand the constraint at the time when they did it in the original trilogy, when they were made. Plus, it's in space, so, kind of made sense. So I guess they miss scenes like this where they're using a blue screen, and even in the 2011 version, he's still black. So, guess they didn't think of that. And they didn't correct A New Hope, apparently, just ESB and ROTJ. Interesting. Now, this is another controversial one, because just like with Han and Greedo, it's almost blasphemy, because I loved the achievement that they had in 1976 when they made all these space shots. I think it was a huge thing, and they followed on the work of 2001: A Space Odyssey, which arguably was the first science fiction movie to make spaceships and stuff look actually real. And then you make a whole battle, the quick shots, stuff like that, techniques and tricks used to make it look real. And to go back and replace the whole thing with CGI, I didn't like it, and I never really watch it. Does it look cool? Sure. I think it looks good, but it's just, I like the original because it's what I'm used to, because of the technical achievement, and quite frankly, it holds up. It holds up. This right here, whatever, it's fine. I think it's unnecessary, but I like the fact that you can actually see the Falcon here, because I was always wondering, what's he looking at, you know? Added some details to the Masasi ruins. And this shot here always looked cheesy in 77 with these like triangle lights going shoo shoo. But I don't have a problem with the ships actually being visible and entering space. I think the one on the bottom, the newer one, looks a little fake and cheesy. I don't like the pass by of the camera and stuff. I think the original's iconic. That right there on top is just an iconic shot. I remember seeing it in the storybook and other places. I don't think you want to mess with that. But they did. Look at that, just so cool on the top there. And then from here, you'll see the whole thing. I mean, just what a waste of time on that shot. And that one. And that one. It's when they start fighting the ties that the big difference is. Like right here. Like, I don't know. It just looks too video gamey in the special edition shots, whereas the original, it just looks more lived in and more real, like you're actually there, witnessing it. Let's skip past some of this. Then, of course, the explosion. It'll have the ring just like Alderaan did. Isn't the Death Star gunner like one of the coolest costumes and figures they ever made? So you got the added ring, like whatever. Not a fan of the ring, as I said earlier. Did they do something different with Vader here? Yeah, when he regains control. Wait, I thought it showed the Falcon, the X-Wings, and the Y-Wing heading back together in a new shot. Maybe I'm wrong. Is there any damage? What do they do here? Did they add some damage to the TIE Advanced? Yeah, they cut out the part because I think there's a new shot of the ships returning to Yavin. This doesn't look bad at all, but the original doesn't either. It was an iconic shot from the beginning. So that's all of A New Hope. Again, largely, I don't have an issue with what George and company did, but I think the Battle of Yavin sequence and Han and Greedo are the ones I like the least. I'd take Jabba if I could get rid of those, to be honest. I would take Jabba over those because I don't think they were needed, and I just liked the original effects in the Battle of Yavin. And I like the way that the sequence played out with Greedo in the original. I just don't think it was needed at all. In the Marvel comic, he mentions Anakin. In who does? In what scene? Yeah, and they had pictures of it like in the storybook, like the kid's storybook that I still have, stuff like that. So you're kind of wondering, like, hey, why didn't I see this in the movie? I remember as a kid, like, feeling cheated because there were scenes that I didn't get. Oh, yeah. You're right. You're right. I believe in the novelization as well, so. No, you have it wrong, and I'm going to have a shirt made that says this, because, you know, I've seen the Han shot first shirt. I'm going to have one that says something even better than Han shot first. It's Greedo never fired. Because that's more accurate. Han didn't shoot first, Han shot only, right? Greedo never fired. That's what the shirt should say. Have it like in the Star Wars font in green. Maybe have his hand on his blaster, something like that. That'd be a cool shirt to make. But anyway, just kind of an impromptu stream. Thought it would be fun to go over that stuff. I'll put, and actually the name, again, it's Luke Skywalker is the channel. Only 881 subs, but he's got like these videos with tens of thousands of views, hundreds of thousands of views. So I feel kind of bad. Just this guy put a lot of time into this stuff. Like, sub to that guy and tell him I sent you, I guess. And I'll put links to the two videos so that you can watch along. In the beginning, you can see what I'm talking about until I shared the screen. I was a little worried. Hopefully it doesn't get claimed or anything like that, but there's no sound, and I think it was transformative, so I don't think we'll have a problem. Chuck's in the house saying howdy. Wind it back and watch our special edition side-by-side comparison, Chuck. But I think at about, I don't know, 20 minutes here, I think Ryan Kinnell's member stream starts, and I may hop on there. Probably Acolyte is the topic, I would suspect. I haven't really looked yet to see what the topics are, but that's always fun. Some interesting individuals on that stream. Gabriel's on there at times, so I'll probably have to make time for that because it's a good way to promote the channel and stuff. But yeah, we've been going an hour and 20 minutes here, guys. Thanks to Gabriel for the super chat. Appreciate it. This is something you can watch whenever. It's a timeless video. It is an evergreen video, so you can watch it anytime, tell friends, whatever. We'll do Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith sometime in the future. But thanks for being here, guys. We'll see ya in the very near future. Later.
USA.